the other, because that's kind of what Libra brings to the table. So we're talking about Libra, Venus, and the seventh house. And we're going to be talking about the sign of Libra, how she represents the need to seek out the other, experience a level of peace and balance, and to see her own reflection in the mirror. Libra also represents our discernment of choices, our discernment of information. So she really brings to the table being able to look at both sides and really having to make a hard decision, because there might be a little like, oh, I don't want to make the wrong choice. So we've got to give these people ample opportunity to make a decision. Now, Venus, it's Libra function because we know that Venus is ruled by Taurus as well. So when it comes to the Libra function, we're drawing in others to our experience instead of just having a solitary understanding of how we feel about our values and our bodies and, how much worth we have and wealth. We're now moving from that to allowing people into that and allowing people to bring their things with them so that we can expand and help us move from an inner sense of reflection to an outward sense of reflection. So Venus has, a bunch of different facets to her, just like Mercury does. And the reason for that is because it really controls all facets of our lives when it comes to Mercury and Venus. And so it takes time for us to break it all down and make sure that we know that there are different ways that we can look at it, and different ways that we can draw more information if we're looking to strengthen Venus or, do different things with her that feel satisfying. Venus represents our satisfaction. And lastly, we'll talk a lot about the seventh house and how it represents our lives where it's the descendant. It's what we have the least amount of. And it's where we notice that there's a lack in our lives, that there's something that we need, and we go out and search for that, because we need to reach a sense of balance. I can't just have one experience. I've got to have this one too, because both of those experiences are going to allow me to make a better choice. So this is the house of relationship dynamics and contracts. So we'll get a little deeper into that as we understand Libra to be an air sign. It's cardinal. So it is in this mode of thinking about the mental process. This is a quick, not so emotional, not taking things too personal, and really needing to take information in, experiences in, and people in. The cardinality of Libra brings in this flexible, changing, and a cooperation with life. Actually, that's wrong. Cardinality, I think I copied it over wrong. I apologize. So when we're talking about cardinal signs are bringing in a new mode of directing our lives. So usually when there's a transit happening over the cardinal cross, which is, houses 1, 4, 10, and 7, when things are happening there, it's almost like we are having to spring into a new way of living. So it really does bring a change, a test, and asking if we want to continue, sort of thing. And that's what cardinality brings. So the Libra function of cardinal is deciding, where do I stand in the larger scope of what's happening in the world? How do I give? How do I serve? How do I be resourceful? And the symbol of the scales, generally when we see Libra, it's usually represented as a feminine archetype, and she's usually holding scales. But I just wanted to point that In modern astrology and traditional astrology, we look at Libra as just the scales itself and not the human that they insert, because we want to make sure that there's a distinction that Aquarius is our human, um, and that's, yeah, that's what I wanted to mention. So when we think about scales, we think seeking equal sides, being balanced, a level of justice, and we think about court systems and, people defending themselves. And it's the impartial nature of law, meaning, we have to hear both sides. Everyone is innocent until proven guilty. And these are, when we're dealing with equality, balance, justice, that type of thing, we're talking about man-made laws, because we can't really put laws to uh, things that are natural. And we'll talk about that more when I talk about Neptune a little bit, but um, there's that little note. So cardinal signs bring fresh awareness to our actions. We mentioned that. It helps us see where the cracks are. With Libra, it helps us see what we're missing. It emboldens us to test ourselves, to test other people, to test our relationships, to bring a larger focus to our lives. So when we're looking at the wheel here, we've gone through houses 1 through 6, and this is the lower hemisphere, because let's see if I can do this here. Oh, no. Sorry about that. Okay, so if we split up the chart like this, we see this big cross. And this cross delineates, the quadrants and the hemispheres of the chart. So each one of these pie pieces is a quadrant 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm not going into this too in depth in this class, because these are just techniques, further techniques that we can discuss, in later classes if you'd like to join. But for the purpose of understanding this separation, we can see that each of these quadrants represents 3 sets of signs. And so when we start to get to the 7th house, we're now out of the personal signs. So everything below the lower hemisphere here are considered personal signs. We're dealing with the personal planets. We're dealing with our own sense of self, how we're going to survive and thrive in the world, how we're going to educate and work. And then we get to this point like, okay, we're fully resourced with Virgo. Now we need to go out into the world with what we've learned, and we've got to see, okay, what are we missing here? Who do we need in order to complete the story? And that's what this activation is bringing, is an awareness of other people, a care and a need to know others, and less focus on the self, because after a while that gets boring. We want to learn about other people. So when people or astrologers represent the 4 angles, this is it right here, the cardinal cross. So if you are a sign, any one of these signs, or if you have planets in these houses, crucial, because it is a level of activation. It brings a lot of strength. It magnetizes a lot of situations. So if you have planets in these areas, they end up being a very large scope of who you are and how you operate, and kind of take the scene more than some of the other placements. Okay, let me get out of this thing that I was doing here. Okay. So when we talk about air, we are using the mind to create a new reality, and with Libra, we're bringing other people's realities into our experience. So this is the watching reality shows. and looking at other people's love lives and being interested in other people's affairs. And um, it's because Libra seeks to have the knowing of other people's experiences because it brings them to a bigger level of balance. They don't have to go out and seek extremes in order to find out what that is. So it's very important for Libra and Air to really bring in the information, to really learn about how other people are living. Um, Air signs don't hold on to the past so tightly, which is wonderful. It creates less havoc when you're not kind of droning on things that are holding you back. So these are the signs that are really gonna push forward and not worry about what people think, because at the end of the day, you know, what other people think doesn't matter. I mean, essentially all these people will care about if people are talking about them and things are being said, but for the most part they can pass through it a little quicker. So it's using our legs, our intellect, our speed, our mental acuity to get us to higher places, to get us to more opportunities. When we introduce language, we're introducing people, we're introducing movement. So there's a lot of opportunity that comes with air. So let's talk about polarity. So here we're talking about Libra. We're talking about the mental aspect of what Libra brings to the table. There's a mental aspect to Venus. It's not just a body-centered thing. And it represents the ability to have emotional balance, to be a little more even emotionally. And Libra uses others to, and I don't say use in that way, just use in a general sense, uses others to determine where one's place is in their life. And when they're able to see someone else's point of view, then they understand where they are. And so having that opposite lets them see themselves, just like a mirror, um, a reflection of sorts. So, and the reflection is, what are you mirroring back to me? Is there something underneath that? And usually it's just to have an experience to come together, to see if they can find themselves in it, to find a common story. Like, yeah, me too. Me too. I experienced that too. So there's a reciprocation that happens with Libra. Libra needs resources to flourish. And that does come from relationship and connections with other people and the input of others. So while Taurus brings our own personal ability to do that for ourselves, Libra says, hey, it's more fun when we're together. You're going to get way more out of this if you let other people come in. And therefore, it makes you just way more balanced. It makes you a fair kind of person when you are having these different experiences. The Libra brings the diplomat. Um, uh, they can take sides or change their mind often if they've heard new revelations or things that have come up to prove why they should change their mind once they've made it. They're fighting for love and they're coming together. So, Libras are coming into this life looking for a relationship, friendships, partnerships, romantic and otherwise. This is how they have an expansive experience of themselves. And after a while, though, there is a need to discover independence, and that's where Aries comes in. Aries reminds, the Libra of why they can't forget about, what they've survived from, how they were once by themselves and can manage on their own, that they don't have to be in a relationship in order to do well. Aries reminds the Libra that You know, you've got to live to fight another day. Sometimes you've got to um, separate and create conflict in order to take back something in your life, and reinvent yourself, separate and not become melded with the other person. So sometimes astrologers will talk about, the Libra archetype and getting lost in their partner and transforming into their partner. And, it's true in any sense of the word. When you are around anyone for a long amount of time, you're going to start to meld together, and you're going to do similar things and dress the similar ways. I mean, they even say that animals start to look like their owners after some time. And I've seen that happen. It's natural, and it's not a negative thing to look at. And I've seen some negativity around that archetype. I don't really like it so much. So this is the balance of the signs. And this is the balance of the planets between Mars and Venus. So, Venus is bringing a sense of value and inner worth, um, outward expression and usefulness of one's resourcefulness and what they're doing in their lives. Um, it's the understanding that people need what we have, the resource that we have, whether it's our talents and gifts or our money or our food. It doesn't matter. Whatever we have, we need to share. And so that's where the Libra part of Venus comes in. We look to Venus when we want to see how we value or treat our wealth, how we spend our money, and how we view ourselves. Um, Venus is the perspective on relationships and can be the perspective of your relationship between your parents. Venus is our marketplace, it's our stores, our vendors, our trade and commerce. It's the ability to go out in the world and find whatever is missing so that you can feel complete, so you can finish your project, so you can get on to the next mode of operation. And then Mars brings to the table, hey, you can't just be all love and accepting and take everything in. Sometimes you have to defend yourself. You've got to be autonomous. And so Mars comes in and says, I'm going to be a little hard when it comes to my prices. And I'm going to search for particular people that have strength in the things that they make. So, the activist, the warrior, is the Mars influence. It helps us fight for what we want to stand for. This axis is really strong and prominent in some of the people that we'll be talking about. It's actually, when we're talking about a Libra, there's so much Mars in there, there's so much polarity, you can't unsee it. A lot of our Libras are our defense systems in the world. They are the ones who activate us for change and social justice. So there's never one without the other. Um, and when there's one concentration of something, then we have to go towards the other to give the balance. So you'll see Libra people have very strong Mars and very strong-willed and independent and willing to do things, but they're also Venusian. They also love to be in a relationship and love to be together and are not combative, but they need what makes them feel alive. So that's the difference between the two planets there, and the difference between the houses. So we have the first house and the seventh house. We talked about the ascendant and the descendant. So the ascendant is where we're facing a new battlefield, where we're waking up to a new experience of our lives. We're coming through our mother's birth canal, and our head is coming through, and we're taking a breath. And there's so much instinct in the first house. If you've got planets here, it's a no-brainer. You don't have to think when you're here. It just comes because it's instinctual. Any planets here create instinct, and So therefore, it is not always calculated. It doesn't need to be calculated. Um, and with the seventh house, we are coming to make amends. We're coming together to break bread and make peace. So now that you've Aries, fought for your life and fought for your land and the things that you want in your life, now you've got to take a break. Now you've got to invite people in and make your city and make your land flourishable and draw people to the land. So, it's needing. It's a need based house. This whatever sign is leading this house is something that you're looking for, that will help complete what you're looking for in terms of relational qualities, and bringing a higher level of satisfaction. It's where we're testing our birthing stage. So if we're birthing ourselves in the first house and having a bunch of new experiences, the seventh house is where the test comes in. Do people react to my new experience here? Am I attracting the right attention, um, based on my changes and this new experience that I'm having? So it does bring that balance of I'm by myself, now I'm together. Now I'm together, I need to be by myself. And there needs to be like a healthy balance with this, which can be difficult for pretty much anybody. So, if you're ready to talk about Libra through the houses, we can do that. We did talk about having Venus in the particular houses when we talked about Taurus, but I thought it'd be nice to talk about Libra in this aspect. So, if you've got Libra in the first house or Libra on the ascendant, you come into this life looking for balance and relational qualities that make you feel like you will survive and that you'll live longer. So these people are in need of coming into this life to join and to make two, because longevity is achieved more when there's other energy inserted. So these people need to have some kind of relationship, romantic or otherwise, in order to have a high level of satisfaction with life. They will be an assertive Libra. They will generally live by the seat of their pants. They will probably be the black sheep of the family, will do things quite differently, whether male or female. They will have an experience of being aggressive with their life and being aggressive with what they want to go towards. So it will be quite a different experience for a Libra here. So we talked about satisfaction. And now if we talk about, what this person will attract, they will attract relationship dynamics. Everything will be wrapped around how they relate to what is happening to them, how they feel about it. It's a constant mental process about these new experiences, these things that they see that remind them of themselves or other people. And there's a lot of trying to connect the dots with um, with Libra here. So very quick, very smart, very passionate. Yeah. So if you've got Libra in the second house, Libra in the second house is a very resourceful kind of person, but they are needing a level of validation in order to find a level of self-confidence. So when they achieve that level of self-confidence, then it becomes a really big resource for them. It becomes something that they can finally give away. So these signs this signature, would bring a person who would want to help other people, who would want to come into this life with having like a big calling to give what they have, but they don't quite have the thing yet. So there's a level of developing oneself here with Libra in the second house, and really trying hard to be okay alone and to find out, how to create a good sense of self-confidence and believing that they are enough. These could be very musical people, people who have a deep connection with the arts, with the healing arts, or color therapies or things like that, because it's a very Venus on Venus kind of expression. Um, yeah. So these people would attract to themselves other people who are hopefully feeling resourced, hopefully feeling like they've got everything that they need, and the overabundance of what they have can then spill over to others. And so that's what they're attracting, people who have a lot, and sometimes that can be big shoes to fill. So if there's Libra in the third house, this is a very quick-minded, very fast-moving Libra expression. When you have this, you know what would be fun? You know what would be better if I did it like this? Sorry, guys, give me a second. Let's see. Because I think what's important to show is that when I talk about Libra being in the third house, you would get to see what the ascendant is. And I want you to see that so that you can see how that applies. There we go. There we go. Okay. Okay. So we talked about Venus in the first house, Venus being the ascendant, right? But if, Venus is in the second house, then Virgo would be the ascendant. And so you can kind of see how, one would be critical of themselves with Venus in the second house. With Libra in the second house. If the second house represents our self-confidence, and we're coming into this life very critical, very coming here to have this experience that is a little more perfected and polished, then, they would be self-critical of themselves here with Venus in the second house. So that's why I did mention that there would need to be, some guidance and some help with other people reaffirming to this person that, yeah, you are doing things and you don't need to be perfect and what you have is enough. So I wanted to point that out there. So if we had Libra in the third house, then we'd have a Leo ascendant. So Libra in the third house is coming to learn how to use their voice and figuring out how to do that in a way that's going to bring people together, that's going to harmonize or neutralize a situation. So they're going to come here to figure out, hey, is there a better approach to this? Can we be more fair when it comes to judging others and their process and the way they do things? So this is going to be a person that you can bring to a mediation. These are people who are going to do their best to diffuse a situation, and these people would probably do pretty well in school. Usually Libra has the ability to ask questions, ask really good questions if they're confused. So if it's falling in the house of communication and learning, then they're going to be inquisitive. They're going to be extremely curious about their education. They're going to need to read a lot in order to have that fulfillment of, I need to be inspired by another life experience. They would draw to them people and experiences where they are experiencing, people who are gregarious and fun and able to offer a different level of intelligence, um, you know, really needing for having good intellectual connection, um, is good here with Venus in the third house, or excuse me, with Libra in the third house. So if Libra was in the fourth house, then the concerns with safety is big here. Now, a Cancer ascendant or a Libra in the fourth house is a person who is looking for the right people to provide the safe environment that they need. Their home and their early life is extremely important for development. So if they've got planets here or if they've got concentrations, then, this Libra might feel unsafe about their early childhood experiences or being with, um, might have some instability or might have issues with having a home, um, or feeling comfortable at other people's homes. So this is kind of a sensitive placement, and can really need people that they trust, can only invite people in that they trust. So that can kind of take a while, to, you know, ask the right questions and interview all the people to make sure that, I can be transparent with you, I can trust you, I can tell you my deepest, darkest thoughts, and they will be held safe by you. Um, and so Libra in the fourth house attracts people who are trying to prove that they are safe people to trust. Um, they're drawing people to them that are resourceful in their own right. Um, and they're drawing to them people that are looking to be or looking to know the deeper parts of their life. So if this person is able to get comfortable with being vulnerable with that Cancer ascendant, then there's a wealth of knowledge to know about this person with Libra in the fourth house. They will tell you every story about what has happened to them. They will tell you about every person that they're inspired by because they really are trying to take their time to get to know themselves and other people here. So if there's Libra in the fifth house, this is a person who would probably have a Gemini ascendant. And so this is a lot of air. This is a lot of taking in knowledge and experiencing fun and friendship and movement. With Libra in the fifth house, these people are extremely gregarious, and people really like them. They feel as if, you know, when it comes to having fun, when it comes to enjoying life, these people are closely intimate in knowing that part of themselves, and are trying to um, connect with that fun. They're trying to um, draw new experiences, new people, and new information that they can create from. So these can be really great songwriters. These can be really good storytellers, and potentially people who can write really well, as a creative resource, as a creative outlet. And so they'd probably draw to them people who were, um, you know, the life of the party. They would draw to them people who are money minded, who are thinking of the next way that they can earn, um, or just maybe another way to connect with others. So with Libra in the fifth house, They may draw to them, experiences with other people's children, and maybe having a really good time with that, or being able to give something to other people's children that maybe they don't give to their own, or maybe they don't have children. So it's a good placement for that. So Libra in the sixth house is a person coming into this life to ground themselves with a Taurus ascendant. They are coming here to find out what they're really good at. Um, they're coming here to figure out their skills and their talents in a way that feels like natural. So when there is Libra in the sixth house, um, these people are very able to manage a situation and manage themselves well. Uh, Very, very independent people. Um, they come in with like a wealth of different things that it seems like they've touched before. Very talented and gifted, very aesthetically able to see where things are missing, where the color isn't right. Proportion is a huge consideration with um, Libra in the sixth house. And so, again, these people can still be amazing writers and very emotionally adept, because they kind of take their time. They're ruled by Venus here. They have a Venus on the ascendant because Taurus is there, and they have Venus in the sixth house. So there is this sense of like, oh, what I discover about myself, what I lead with, what I take charge with in my life is something I eventually am able to teach others to do. So these are really good examples of, how to live a steady and stable life. These are very logical people. This is my daughter's signature. So, you know, friendships are hard here. Relationship dynamics can be a little crisis oriented, because the sixth house brings crisis into our lives so that we can develop really good problem solving skills. So when it came to relationship for her, um, it was hard for her to find good friends at school. A lot of people were not emotionally okay, is what her, emotional maturity is what she uses. And she has Cancer in the third house. So, school, she would expect for these people to be mature. Come on, act your age. And so, she spent a lot of her years sitting alone and eating at school, because what she desired was to have a real experience with people, and she was willing to wait until she got there. Now she has all kinds of good things, but I just remember having conversation with her about, you know, there is integrity in waiting with that Taurus ascendant and taking your time, but when you finally decided, it's a keeper. So that is one kind of experience with that. Let's see here. So with Venus, Libra in the seventh house would mean that you would have an Aries ascendant. So this is the relationship axis, first house, seventh house. Always will deal with relationships. And so this person will come into this life very independent, however, very geared towards needing to find the one, essentially. And we'll get into many different relationships very quickly in order to find a level of satisfaction so they can then work on themselves, so they can then have an experience of themselves that is independent. So I say that because it's like coming into this lifetime knowing that you come in alone and you go out alone, but intrinsically knowing that like true happiness happens when we come together and we exchange in some kind of way. So this person always needs to have an influx of new people in their lives, new energies, um, you know, a lot of fast and exciting movement. Um, I've seen people with these signatures, run into people who, you know, are aggressive. And so their experience of these people makes them feel cautious, makes them feel as if, there's a certain kind of person that they need to find. So these people will have a lot of different relationship situations that might feel really like, wow, that happened to you? Like, oh, that seems like a lot. Um, these people have a lot of stories about the relationships that they've been in and the way people have treated them. Um, and so, uh, these people can be extremely resourceful in knowing what other people need. So they might be confused about putting all of their own pieces together, but when it comes to what other people need in terms of maybe their relationship counselors of some sort, or maybe they're able to see something that is missing in a way that other people are not. So they're really good confidants. They're people that are able to let things go and move on. And if there's planets in this house, if there's an attention drawn here, um, it is a coming together and understanding this dynamic of how am I when I'm alone and how am I when I'm together? And can I value both? Can both be a part of my life? Can I be okay if there's not a person validating my experience and vice versa? Okay. So, if you've got Libra in the eighth house, it means that you come with a Pisces ascendant. So, with Libra in the eighth, this is a very giving placement. They may not always know when to stop when it comes to giving. And, there's a level of seeing people with need and having a lot of information about what need means, because maybe they've had an experience of that. They haven't had all of their essential needs met, maybe as children or at some part of their lives. And so they're really trying to make sense of that, make sense of putting up boundaries. Boundaries is a biggie here with Libra in the eighth house. Libras are so considerate of the other person's experience. They can't help but to give some of their emotionality, some of a little piece of them, because they're like, man, I get that, I understand that. So when you're constantly giving little pieces of yourself, then you can sometimes become frayed. So that's why I say this placement wouldn't, these people would need to have boundaries um, in a way that allowed them to still give at the capacity that they do, and for them to also, develop levels of where they're attracting people that bring things to them instead of attracting people who need things. Maybe they can attract people who will give things to them. So here with Venus in the, or excuse me, with Libra in the eighth house, relationships can be shocking. They can be confusing. Um, they can be, you know, when it comes to the eighth house, we have to remember that the eighth house creates some kind of rupture, some kind of, that was painful. I'm going to learn from it, but it was painful. And so there's a level of protecting oneself and trying to sequester and grow one's power and one's um, emotionality in a safe way. So, you know, these people might feel damaged from their relationship dynamics and might feel a little hardened by it until they're met with someone who is a little softer in that respect, more cooperative, maybe more willing to work with them and what they're going through and how they process. So having this relationship sign in the eighth house, there's a level of like not wanting to separate. I don't want us to not be together. So letting go of relationships would be very difficult. This would be a really good monogamous person. Maybe. Depending on the rest of the stuff. We know we've seen some other people in the world that, are not monogamous, but have signatures in this fashion. So um, with Venus, or excuse me, with Libra in the ninth house, these people are very much concerned with higher levels of education, making sure that they are intelligent, that they know what the master plan is. When you have an Aquarius ascendant, the way you take information, the way you process it, and how fast is very important. So, these people might move through school very quickly, very concerned with the level of information that they're getting, making sure that it's diverse, making sure that they're hearing all of the different levels of history that are out there. These people will not be able to take uh, the one word approach, or someone else saying that this one thing reigns supreme. This person will very much know that there's something else out there, when it comes to maybe like religious views, because we're talking about the ninth house. They may know a lot about many different religions or spiritual practices, and not really, have to pick one, but maybe dive into all of them in order to have a greater experience. So Libra in the ninth, they will likely be, people to, be great writers, maybe actually publish things, or, um, bring people together that need a higher education. So maybe they might be great counselors, or helping students move on to, something where they're getting their education needs met in a different way. Um, so I would say that they would draw to them people who are wise and knowledgeable. Um, and they're having all of these experiences because they're really trying to offer that eventually, to be that resource for other people. So um, yeah, yeah. So if Libra is in the 10th house, this is where it starts becoming interesting, because a Capricorn ascendant with a Libra in the 10th house, these people know the rules and know which ones need to be broken. These people are needing to see a representation of people who have integrity, who are credible, who are going to tell the truth, who are going to be fair and equal to everyone. And so when there are laws and regulations that don't contain these things, when they marginalize or keep people out, it makes this signature rise to the occasion, and they become very activist oriented. They become people who need to fight for the social um, the social uprising, and bringing a level of peace to that. Um, being able to invite other ideas and theologies that would increase satisfaction and happiness, because that's what Libra represents. So it's to bring a level of that level of peace and serenity to the social scene. because the 10th house, 11th house, and 12th house represent our social life. So these people are very much focused on the other and service of other and the integrity of that. With Libra in the 11th house, this is the house of friendship. And so this person might be really popular. When there's a really nice, funny person with a Sagittarian ascendant, they're bubbly, they are dynamic, they're ready to take on the world. They will have friends from all different walks of life come into their sphere, and they'll be able to be fair to these people. And you know these people could be gay or lesbian or all black, white. It wouldn't matter to these people. They desire and need difference in all different capacities. And with Libra in the 11th house, they become the mediator between group dynamics. Um, they bring and understand where there are pitfalls in those groups, where people are not being treated right. These people are learners for life. You'll never be able to get these people out of a classroom. I know someone in particular who is probably only 34, but says they've been, doing their practice for 30 years. And boy, I believe it. Um, they just have such a long list of things that they have done and have certified for, and information that they've taken in. Um, and their group of friends is huge, and they are the most popular one. And rightfully so. They deserve that. Having so much experience makes for a really nice conversation. So they attract to them definitely people who are of similar caliber, who like all of that difference and information and tolerance and knowledge brought into the sphere. So if there's Libra in the 12th house, this can be kind of depending on what's happening in the chart. When there's a Scorpio ascendant, I always think, oh, this person knows how life is. They know the good, the bad, and the ugly. So when I see a Libra ascendant, I think, wow, this person is coming into this life really wanting to have a high level of peace and understanding about themselves, because they understand it about the world. These people can be very, very sensitive. They can need a lot of care when it comes to their emotional state, and maybe any traumas that they experience. They need to be well received. And so they're coming into this life, having a deep connection with nature, and, potentially having, you know, an experience where resources kind of come from nowhere, where, oh, I had this need for something, and someone just delivered it to my doorstep. When it comes to lovers, when it comes to business partners, they come out of nowhere. This is the house of no planning in the 12th house. So, these people very much have to go with the flow. They very much have to try their best not to live in any kind of past hurts, because if they're able to really get a grasp on how they've become such a knowledgeable being with all of these experiences that aren't perfect or desirable, um, the amount of exposure to the right things will increase. So, we think of the 12th house, Pisces, Neptune, we think of our immune system. and how we could just be walking out through our day and someone could cough in our direction and boom, we're sick. Comes out of nowhere. And after a while of moving through and being an adult and eating different things and eating with your fingers, you develop a level of tolerance and of immunity. And so, therefore, the things that come at you are not always affecting you, and you're able to move with greater ease. So, um, these people, eventually will come to a place where they will find, you know, a sense of like drawing really great experiences to them that feel delightful, that feel, intimate, that feel exactly what they're looking for, a deep union with other people where they don't have to let go and they don't have to lose trust. Um, and they can trust that no one's going to hurt them or hit them or be um, you know influential Libra is Dr. Mindy Pels. I really enjoy this person. She is very bubbly. She has so much personality. This is a Sun on first chart because I don't have her time. So when I look at her chart, it's just showing me how she is in a general sense. So she's a health advocate. She is really largely in the public. I mean, she is very accessible through YouTube and books and other platforms. So this 12th house is true. She is a part of the public eye. She is providing resources and education and information about women's bodies and how they operate. She educates women on the proper balance of their bodies when it comes to hormones, um, when it comes to eating right, eating at the right times. So you can see that food and thinking about how it's supposed to go, with having all of this Capricorn in the third house. So she's got Moon and Mars in the third house of, you know, communication. We're using our mouths, but we're also eating. And so she came to this way of life after being a staunch athlete. I believe she was a tennis player. And over some time, she started to experience nervous system issues. So, shaking and not being able to eat enough. And, she'd go back and forth with her doctors, and they couldn't really give her the proper guidance. She has Chiron in the sixth house of health. So, she ended up having to literally figure out how to do this on her own. And it was through food that she figured out how to balance her levels. She found that she was eating at the wrong times and eating the wrong things. And so, over the course of her life, she's really developed this thing for herself in the sixth house. And then on the other side of that, she's got all of this Venus. It's now huge. She's, you know, millions upon millions of views on YouTube. She's written many, many books. The Menopause Reset, Fast Like a Girl, um, and she has millions of subscribers. And, you know, she is able to educate people on things that maybe they're not aware of, things that they can't really see. In the 12th house, that's the house of um, no sight. It's where we are leaving things up to God, where we're letting things go. And she's kind of teaching people to not do that, to be more aware of how they feel, to understand that there are organs inside of their bodies that need balance, that can't be seen, that need attention. And so she does lots of different podcasts with people. Just a really fascinating story, because she is a Sun Jupiter. Her books are widely successful. I think I don't have one. I have Fast Like a Girl. It's very, very good. I think she gives very practical and sound advice for women that are in perimenopause and over, um, and really kind of shows us how to reinvent the way that we eat, reinvent the way that we care for our bodies, paying attention to our different cycles, especially if we're still having a period. Um, and she just really kind of makes women feel okay about who they are, and how they show up. So she's a very safe kind of person, leads a lot of groups and, yoga and different outdoor activities with other people. She used to have a clinic in the Bay Area, where she would see clients and people would come in and do like a nutrition profile with her. And then she would kind of give them a nutritional guide and tell them when they should be eating and when they shouldn't be eating. Um, and a big part of her premise is that, like, you're supposed to give your body enough time to eat up all of the food and impurities and the things so that your body is able to be optimal. And she gives, eating windows, and the rest of the time is to fast in order to bring, bigger levels of energy. And she's very big on anti-aging. This is like her anti-aging secret is fasting and getting rid of all of those free radicals and allowing the body to eat uh, the excess waste. So um, she's getting ready to have she's having a nodal return now, so I wonder if, she'll see more success with her business. She just launched a new book, Eat Like a Girl. So now she's telling people, before she was telling them what they should be removing from their diet, what they should be leaving behind, and now she's starting to talk about what should be inserted back into your body, what the proper way to eat instead of the proper way to not eat. So it's very interesting that she's kind of, flipping the script and probably talking more about how to nourish ourselves instead of um, what some people feel like is starving. It's hard to fast, it's hard to stay there and to eat the right foods, and the whole keto thing. And it can be very unhealthy if one goes through extremes. And she can be extreme because she is a sun Jupiter. And so, she feels like, well, if I can do it, all of us can do it. Um, and so, you know, these types of advice are amazing. And also, we have to remember, like, everything with moderation. So, anyways, she's a wonderful Libra person. So, when we consider Libra and what they offer for us, they're answering the call of our needs. It's like they're sitting there in the cafe and they overhear a conversation. And this conversation is really good. These people are talking about, they're looking for a particular person that's able to do this thing. And if anybody, if you know anybody, let me know. And they're sitting and they're listening, thinking that's something I could probably do. And so there's a level with Libra that they are kind of they're kind of able to mold themselves to fit whatever that need is at that moment. Um, so you can see these people in the picture. They're providing food and aid to, maybe people who fell on hard times. They could be homeless. Um, and that's what I mean about just kind of stepping in, knowing that people need something and being the person to hand it over. So Libra is the representation of two, introducing another. It's diplomatic approaches to conversations. It's hearing both sides of the story. It's being the mediator. It's offering problem solving to a wider range of people. So, the sixth house in Virgo, they're very much our problem solvers of the wheel. But when we learn that to a capacity that it becomes our own resource, then when we get to Libra in the seventh house, we can now give it away. We can now offer it. Libra loves to seek better, right? They're looking for greener pastures. They're looking for, moving on to bigger and better resource when it comes to, your daily needs, your food, the car that you drive, the gas in that car. Um, all of those things are things that a Libra is able to give to others or feel resourceful with. They're listening for the answers to come, so they're waiting. They have this level of natural discernment, so they need time for all of the details and then for them to kind of pick over them so that they can know what the right answer is. A lot of times we can ask questions to the universe or higher selves or whatnot, and there can be a lot of different answers that are coming through, and it's like, how do we discern which one we should listen to? And that's what Libra brings. So whatever sign you have in the seventh house or whatever you have in Libra can help you identify which way you listen. Is it with your emotions? Are you listening with your spiritual centers? And so there's this reception quality, this like sitting and waiting for the divine timing to come. Um, the sign of Libra represents the kidneys and our hormones in particular. So, very funny that our previous influential person, Mindy Pels, she deals most directly with the female hormonal system and how to bring that to balance. So, that's an interesting thing there. So, our second person is Neil Howe. Um, He's a historian and an economist, and he wrote this really amazing book, The Fourth Turning is Here. He, went to all of his established places to get his education. Very smart with all of this Virgo and Libra going on in his chart in the first, in the 11th and the 12th houses. He has just a lot of, being able to see details in a way that maybe other people are not. So he's a generational theorist and has developed a lot, or co-developed with a man named William Strauss, generational cycles. So he talks about how you can delineate a cycle of like a generation based off of what's happening in that lifetime. And his references in his books are all American references, but he and his partner coined these four generational archetypes, from prophets being the baby boomers, nomads are the Generation X, the heroes are the millennials, and the artists are the silent generation. And he kind of breaks down through the book kind of how these people grew up and why they developed the particular skills and things that they did, and what they pass on to other generations. And so in all of this research, he's come up with this fourth turning. So he has these different ways of looking at a century and how you break it down. And he says, every 80 to 100 years, society enters a crisis period in which we come together, there's a big uproar, and then afterwards we come to this stage of revolution and reinventing ourselves. So he's talking about how this crisis and this upheaval is happening right now. Um, you know, Making connections and links to, Civil War and the American Revolution. Now, I'll tell you, if you're someone who doesn't deal with conspiracy or those types of things, I wouldn't suggest reading this book. It's not a conspiracy theory, but what you'll start to realize is, oh, this could be scary. because a lot of the things that he mentions are true in terms of how far he can go back in history and bring that forward, how we just keep going through these 20-year cycles, um, and that we can't forget about history if we want to know about the future. So this ninth house that he has, he's got Uranus and the moon there. So he's very personally identified with, you know, safety in the world. You know, are people safe? You know, do people, um, are people able to be taken care of? You know, what about people's families? I wonder about his family. His life is very personal. He doesn't talk about it much. Um, But it seems like with this ninth house, he's trying to teach us how to preserve like our family units. And you can kind of tell that in the book because he really brings a level of mediation between the generations and really shows us why we should be accepting each other, why millennials should get should get along better with baby boomers, you know, why Gen X, you know, needs particular things, as opposed to, you know, a different generation. So, you know, he's used in as a consultant for different companies, for economics and being able to see the trends. So if you're feeling nervous about, you know, the way things are turning out, and you know you're looking for practical solutions to find a middle way, this book right here is a good one. I like it so much because when I started to read it, I started to realize that the planetary cycles align with a lot of his dates. So some of my work has come from him. I've spoken with him. He's a wonderful gentleman and does believe that we need to do everything possible to understand who we are cyclically, and you know how that works so that we're not feeling um, scared and fearful about the future, because the answers are here. Um, and it's I don't know, almost a really great history book. So it's on Audible. Okay, that's my last plug. Um, yeah, so his theories influence discussions on economics, politics, and social change. It's funny, he also has the same nodal axis. I guess I didn't realize they were both so close. So he's also having a nodal return. I don't know if his work will be more prominent, if maybe some of the things he's talking about will come true. I have no idea. But so Taurus versus Libra. What's the difference between them if we're talking about Venus? Don't look at these words up here because this is wrong. um, So we did talk about earlier that the Taurus portion of Venus deals with ourselves and our inner life, and you know what we do to bring peace to that inner life. Um, how we feel pleasure when we're alone. You know, what do we enjoy when it comes to food? What's our personal taste? What are our personal preferences? And then when Libra comes in, it's like, oh, you like that? So, oh, you're going to introduce me to what you like and what satisfies you and what brings you joy? Wow. Now I get the opportunity to expand my Taurus, because now I get to learn maybe something else that will give me that same thing, that same kind of pleasure. But now I get to offer that to you. Now I know what you need from me. Libra is like, hey, um, I I understand that you need a relationship with me. I understand that you need touch and you like different foods. So let me make sure that I get that for you. So when we're able to do it for ourselves in a really impactful way that is aligned with really with who we are and what we actually have to give, then it kind of overspills to other people, and we're able to impart that on them. They impart theirs on us. It starts to get really good. And then all of a sudden, Pisces and Neptune comes along because Neptune is the higher octave of Venus. So, you know, Taurus Venus, Libra Venus equals Neptune, equals Pisces, equals there's love for us all, there's resource for us all. I care about all the things. I care about the animals in the wild, I care about how people feel. There's compassion for not just my lover, not just myself, but for the greater collective. And Neptune represents ultimate happiness, but Venus represents satisfaction. How can we stay satisfied? How can we satisfy ourselves long enough until we get to that ultimate goal of utter and complete happiness, joy, being connected, feeling so divine? Um, it's what Neptune brings. That's what Venus is trying to bring is more good feelings about ourselves, about other people, and the greater world. So that's the difference. It's both Venuses are kind of material in a way. Um, you're going to be buying things, you're going to have things in the home, and um, sometimes that brings a level of happiness, and sometimes that brings a level of togetherness. So I just wanted to mention that. And our last influential person is Eleanor Roosevelt. Now, she wouldn't have been my first choice, but I guess I didn't realize how much she actually did for this country as being a first lady. Um, she was the first lady to hold press conferences and to give speeches. She championed human rights and women's rights and civil rights. I mean, she had something to say about everything. Because look, she's a sun and the North Node in the 10th house. That sun next to the North Node, she's been here before. She's done this before. This is a past life signature. So she came into this life knowing exactly the way people were supposed to be treated. Because essentially she has and knows, she knows how other people feel. She, was this very tall woman. As a young girl, she wasn't really accepted, didn't like all of the frilly things. She didn't like all the same things that other girls liked. And so that made her different. And there are rumors, and the rumor is true, that her husband, FDR, was her cousin, fifth cousin, twice removed. And so, she's kind of both of them are Roosevelts from different lineages, and they came together. And, you know, it was like an arrangement, like, you're going to be a leader, and I'm going to do what I need to do. I'm going to be here to support you. But, after some time, she realized that her husband was not faithful. And I feel like after this point, when she found that out, she really started to live her own life. She's got this very public life out in the open with her husband being a president. And so, what is she to do? She's got this moon in Cancer. She kind of has to go into hiding in the eighth house. She kind of has to start doing things that um, give her safety, that give her that deep level of intimate connection that she wants, where for no one else's eyes. And so she started to gather groups of women together, and they wrote together, they conversed, they smoked, they played cards. They were championing each other to keep the movement going of living this different life, being a woman of her own making, and potentially being married to a man, but not that letting her that be the only thing that defines her. Because she was the real power between FDR. She was the driving force between a lot of his progressive policies. And after he was paralyzed, she took over a lot of that stuff. He had polio. He got polio after a while. And just a couple things, like she rode with the Tuskegee Airmen. She snuck into coal mines to report on worker conditions, and she personally lobbied for the New Deal. So she was just a very outspoken woman, didn't care what anybody thought. She is a Mercury Uranus in the ninth house. She's going to teach us all how to have a better life function when we include everyone, when we stop marginalizing people. But what I didn't realize is that Eleanor had a lover, and her name was Lorena Hicks. Now, Lorena was a reporter and was assigned to Eleanor to um, talk about a story. I can't remember which story, and they had become forever friends. Now, after she passed, she had donated all of her journals to the collection library, and people started to go through them. And they started to realize that she had written hundreds of letters to Lorena back and forth. And I just wanted to read like some of the things that she wrote to this woman. Hick, my dearest, I cannot go to bed at night without a word to you. I felt a little as though a part of me was leaving tonight. You've grown so much to be a part of my life that it's empty without you, even though I'm busy every minute. Dear one, and so you think they gossip about us? Well, they must at least think we stand in separation. I'm always so much more optimistic than you are. I suppose because I care so little about what they say. So, just in some of the words, you realize that yes, there is a deep and intimate connection between these two women. They speak a lot about how they really feel about their love. Um, and you can tell that Eleanor really cares about relationship. You know, she wanted true and deep connection. Um, and she had this very public lifestyle and was with someone that probably didn't love her at all in the ways that she wanted. So she sought that out. And there's a level of like living a secret life, but then also having privacy and her figuring out how she was going to make that happen. And, it wasn't discovered until after everybody passed that this happened. So, she was able to enjoy the little bits. But there was one, um, darling, I feel very happy because every day brings you nearer. I love you deeply and tenderly. I want you to have a happy life. To be sure, I'm selfish enough to want it to be near me, but then wouldn't it be either of us be happy otherwise? Oh, gosh, the way they write is so weird back in the day, but just her sentiments about just overall happiness, how this person brought her so much joy, and how she didn't believe that life could be so joyful. Hicks was a new moon in Pisces. So this person probably had a lot of compassion and willing to just kind of let things go and had the ability to take on the emotional strife that Eleanor was dealing with of being a part of a system that, edges her out and keeps her friends from elevating. And so, you know, being with this Pisces person probably allowed her to get a lot of things off her chest. And I don't know, it's really lovely to see people living in the way that they need to live, and maybe we'll just find out later, type of deal. But um, so this here, I just wanted to mention, it's not something that you have to retain, but when it comes to Venus and Mercury and Neptune, it is I think a lot about our happiness, our satisfaction, and our vocation. I really think a lot of these things are linked. And when we are in this phase of playing with Venus and Mercury in the first quadrant with Taurus and Gemini, we're learning to nurture ourselves and be sovereign and independent, and we're taking in new information because we're trying to be resourceful. We're trying to survive on our own, and trying to provide all of our own needs. This is a very, um, I do it my way kind of signature. But then when we get a little higher in the chart and we start playing with Venus and Mercury again, we start to realize that, oh, nurturing others feels really nice. That brings a joy and a happiness that I didn't think I could experience. And then, you start attracting different ways to earn money, start getting different opportunities through the door. And so you're dealing with more man-made resources here. You're dealing with contracts and money and working with other people and machinery. And so it's a lot of hard resources that you're trying to finagle and make bigger and produce more. This is the production part of the chart. So we go from a level of survival in the first quadrant, and then as we're going into the second and third quadrant, we're coming out of survival and we are now coming to a level of production. And with those two, just thinking about how our lives have played out and all of our experiences, they are a huge culmination of who we are and why we're able to earn and how we're able to hold on to that. Now, these things are great, but I think sometimes I like to think about Neptune being the culmination of it all. How we achieve true happiness, like where that truth lies. And so truth becomes a big factor. Like, yeah, you can be happy in that relationship, but is it satisfying? You know, there becomes a level of, well, I, I'm happy, or, but I'm not getting my needs met. You can still be happy and have those two things can exist together. And that's what Neptune brings to us. It allows for all of these things to be true all at once, for us to accept that we are imperfect, to accept that we need to introduce more into our lives to have better function, to be accessible to all facets. Um, it is the way that we serve the larger public. So, as we've seen before, when people are serving the larger public, the 12th house is usually packed. It usually has an essence of being able to give back in large ways. So when I look to someone's chart and I'm looking for love and money and overall happiness, this is where I'm looking in the birth chart. Just in case you wanted to know or take a look at your own.